Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to answer a question that I'm asked all the time. One of the reasons that I'm asked this question is that if you go through the BDU materials and you look in the biomechanics area, the kinesiological part of the course, most people will kind of question a number of the what we call no-go exercises, um, because for the most part, many trainers are already exercising, working out themselves, of course, and for a lot of folks, myself included, used to do all of these no-go exercises, what we consider to be no-go exercises. And so in the video, I want to answer the question of should you be doing behind the neck shoulder presses? Now, for the most part, as soon as you use the term no go, or you say something like you should never do this or you should never eat this, there's always going to be a contingency of people, right? Clients, your friends, people that are going to say, well, I do it and I get great results, or I eat this and I get great results. And my recommendation is that as a personal trainer, someone in the fitness industry and the wellness industry, as a professional, is simply not to engage in an argument as to whether somebody likes doing a particular exercise. The down and dirty, quick answer to should you do behind the neck shoulder presses with a barbell, for instance, is you personally, as a trainer, I don't care. You do whatever you want to do. You train yourself any way you want to train, whether it makes sense or not, or it doesn't matter because you're the trainer. You're supposed to be the professional that knows proper technique, form, and understands biomechanics well enough and um, physiology well enough of the joints of the body well enough to go, that's not a good exercise, or that's potentially dangerous exercise. Now, if the question, however, is a little bit more specific as to should you have your clients do behind the neck shoulder presses, the unequivocal answer is no. No, don't do it with your clients. What if my client is an athlete? Well, that's up to you. You can make a decision. What if my client is a competitive bodybuilder? No, where it's an unnecessary. Not only is it unnecessary, but the reason it's a no-go exercise is because the the point that it's unnecessary and it's not necessarily going to benefit you in any way more so than other exercises can do. So this idea that, behind the neck shoulder presses puts more stress on the anterior deltoid might be true. It probably is true to a certain extent. Oh, that's great. There's probably three other even better exercises with a barbell that will put intense high levels of force and stress on your anterior deltoids, which means you don't need to do behind the neck presses. So that's one part of it. So when I hear people, even experts, say, well, the behind the neck press puts more stress, direct stress on you. And I sit there and I go, okay, whatever, good. That might actually be the case. Big deal. It doesn't mean much to me because the second variable, which is safety and the potential for greater uh, chronic issues related to the shoulder joint, as well as immediate damage that you could do to the shoulder joint, is way more important. So the answer to the question is if you want to do, you personally as a trainer want to do any exercise, you don't have to ask me. You're a grown adult. Go for it. But when it comes to the question of what do we do with our clients, no, we got to be very, very clear as to how we act as professionals. And the most important thing you do as a professional, as a fitness trainer that is dealing with the average client, and those people are generally over the ages of 30, 40, the average client. Are you going to get some really athletic individuals? Sure. Your job is to ensure, first and foremost, that you are doing things that are minimizing, if not completely eliminating as best you can, the chance for either immediate injury to a joint or a muscle, whatever the case is, and or chronic or longer term problems related to whatever it is you're doing. And behind the neck, shoulder presses with a barbell is one of those particular exercises. So again, the question of, well, what if I got a bodybuilder and he doesn't have proper or he doesn't have enough anterior delt training? It's probably not because they're not doing enough behind the neck shoulder presses. And yes, I know over the years, you've probably seen competitive high-level bodybuilders talk about that's their main bread and butter exercise. Well, interestingly enough, I also know a lot of high-level bodybuilders and national level guys and women that never do behind the neck shoulder presses, and they got some monster anterior delts. In this video, I'm not going to get into why you would train certain exercises to train your anterior delt. I just want to make sure you understand that from a professional fitness trainer's perspective, always look at it from the scientific, in our case, the biomechanics and the anatomy, for instance, of the joints of the shoulder joint itself. And when you go to explain why you should not do behind the neck presses, again, an athlete, a competitive bodybuilder, somebody that does the exercise and they like to do the exercise, okay, whatever. I would try to dissuade them from doing it. But the reason it is so problematic, especially with heavier and heavier loads, is because you're doing uh, movements, or the joint is in two positions, moving through two positions that are, when done together under load, are really problematic. And the one position that you're obviously going to have somebody in behind the neck presses is in external rotation of the shoulder. Now, is there any issue or problem with simply keeping the hand in an externally rotated position? The answer is no, of course. And you do want to obviously work on flexibility with your client, but it's when you combine external rotation of the humerus. Okay, just understand this. This is basic kinesiology, right? It's anatomy and phys of the shoulder joint itself. When you externally rotate the humerus and then combine the next movement pattern, which is, okay, so you're externally rotated, and now as you push up and come back down, you have external rotation. You are now in an abducted, moving into an adducted position, back into abduction. Not as much of a problem in this mid range, but as soon as you go down into a more adducted, with the elbow moving closer to the midline of the body. Remember your kinesiology. Adduction is when the humerus or the arm, we talk about the arm, but it's occurring at the shoulder joint. Okay, it's at the shoulder joint. So whether I have my elbow bent or I don't have my elbow bent, it's the same thing from the perspective of the kinesiological function of the shoulder joint. So whether I have it bent or out here, it's still adduction. This is still adduction of the shoulder. When you are combining external rotation with adduction and abduction of the shoulder, especially into those extended range of motion positions, you are putting an undue or unnecessary level of stress on the joint, not just the joint capsule, but even the ligaments. And by the way, this is only exacerbated, made worse, when the individual you're doing it with already has a low level of flexibility. If an individual has pretty good flexibility in their shoulder joints, and they don't show any overt issues or problems with their shoulders, they're athletic, for instance, sure, if you're going to do it, I'd say I'm probably not the end of the world, but I just wouldn't even do it. I would get people away from doing it altogether. Okay. So think about that for a second. That's the danger. That's the problem that you have with behind the neck presses. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever done shoulder presses in front of the neck? Not behind, but in front. Well, yeah, if you've ever done those, it's a huge difference. Why? Because now, instead of being pinned back here with no movement capabilities, right, with the bar behind my neck, I can't do a whole lot of movement forward this way. It's totally useless to even try that. As soon as I go from a behind the neck to a in front, the game changes. Well, let me ask you a question. Would you think that both this position behind the neck and the bar in front of the neck, with perhaps the elbows in front slightly, a little bit more with the bar coming down in front, leaning back a little bit, would that put a tremendous amount of stress on your anterior deltoid? I mean, why are you trying to build that? I have no idea. Anyway, but it's another video. Do you think you'd be getting similar, maybe even more stress on the anterior deltoid? Perhaps. Not only that, now remember, this is dangerous. We just said from a kinesiological perspective, an anatomical perspective, dangerous, externally rotated, abduction and adduction. Okay. Whereas as soon as I have the bar in front of me, and I can now literally move my elbows forward slightly in front of the plane of the body this way. Now I can come in front slightly. I still maintain a tremendous amount of stress. Still primarily the main mover, driver of the pressing motion itself. But now my elbow, my arm is not way back here externally rotated. It's not as externally rotated, and I can actually what's called horizontally adduct slightly. I can move my elbow in a little bit forward in front of this plane, the frontal plane of the body. So this is why we always tell our clients, if you come to me and you've been doing this exercise, you're not doing behind the necks anymore. Everything's to the front. Not only that, but I can lean back slightly, which actually will help and assist with the functioning of the anterior deltoid. One of the other benefits, just so you know, going from here behind the neck to bringing it in front and being able to horizontally adduct the shoulders slightly, right? Bringing those elbows forward slightly, is that you'll now get a little bit more, I don't know the exact amount, but you'll definitely get a little bit more of the lateral head of the deltoid. Please keep in mind, again, a totally different video. Every head of your deltoid is functional during any movement that you do, almost with the upper body, but any pressing movement. By the way, when you're back here like this, oh yeah, your rear deltoid working, not much, right? But it's all part of the same muscle, even though it's a separate head, and it does have separate innervation patterns to it. It's still functional, but as soon as I come forward even this much, just that tiny little bit, not only am I definitely putting a tremendous amount of stress on my anterior deltoid, but I'm also getting more on the lateral head as well. So, let's go back to the original question. Should you be doing behind the neck presses? Unequivocally, no for your clients. Don't do them for your clients at all. That's the recommendation. I've never done them with clients. I used to do it myself many, many years ago. Shoulder problems and issues, started doing everything to the front, just thinking about the kinesiology and the mechanics of the shoulder, going, why am I doing this for? I don't need to, number one. Actually, when I do this, not only doesn't it hurt, but I'm able to use more weight and get more general activation of both the anterior and the lateral. If I go back even slightly a little bit further, guess what else I get in there, which is not a bad idea. I get a little bit of that upper clavicular pectoralis engagement a little bit more. So definitely the goal here is to be able to explain to your client. That's the difference between what I'm going over with you and other folks that you may watch or listen to, is I'm more interested in what you're doing to your client. Okay. So you reduce the injury potential significantly, number one, by going from behind the neck to the front, if that's how you're going to do it. And believe it or not, it's actually more effective. You're getting more muscle activation by doing it to the front. As long as you don't go too far forward and make some funky positional moves like that. Of course, as we know, for maximal modifications to hand positioning, you go from the bar to dumbbells. And when you're doing dumbbells, again, another video, that would be totally separate explanation. But as soon as you go with dumbbells, we go from this stuck position like this to the ability to make modifications to the supination, pronation component of the wrist. And now I can do this, or I can do this. The benefit of the bar, of course, doing presses to the front is simply that I can add or generally use higher loads. And we definitely recommend that when you are training people, even the average client, based on their particular capabilities, try to use a load that is appropriate. You get 10, 12, maybe even 15 reps on the exercise so you can maximize generally fast twitch fibers, the type 2A, type 2X fibers um, when you're doing a workout. So you can minimize the amount of time, make it more efficient. You can use somewhat heavier loads, but be very careful. Again, we have athletes, we have really fit clients, and then we have 99.9% of all the other clients we will ever deal with. They are detrained, they're unfit in general. They may have some exercise training, resistance training experience that doesn't make up for years and years and years of correct, proper training that most personal trainers might actually have, or for sure, um, athletes, bodybuilders, and other competitive athletes might have as well. So you got to be very, very careful. No behind the neck shoulder presses. It's dangerous, and you can get better anterior deltoid activation by doing shoulder presses, not only to the front, but using dumbbells. By the way, guess what one of the best anterior deltoid exercises is? Yeah, just straight bench presses with a little bit of an incline. Even you don't even need an incline, and doing your basic chest presses for anterior delt training. I like to do flats, and then I usually go up to a 30 and a 45, and that's generally the extent. And if I'm doing any type of shoulder presses, forward shoulder presses, it's going to be with my torso leaning back slightly so I can get into a better biomechanical position. Please keep all of this in mind when you're training your clients. Your goal is to minimize, if not eliminate, the injury potential, and always look for workarounds if they do have pain or other issues going on in their shoulder. I'm hoping that this video will be helpful to you, and reconsider if you're doing them yourself. But for sure, it's a no-go with your clients. If this made sense, you understand it, please write the word understand in the comment section below, and please let us know if this video or any other videos you would like a little bit more elaboration on. I can definitely use that feedback. Make sure if you have not done so, subscribe to the channel as well. Share it with other folks. Give us a thumbs up if it was good, and let us know how we can be of assistance. Have a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye.